ABC News investigation this morning into Joe Biden's son Hunter and questions about money he made from foreign business dealings while his father was vice president.
And did Joe Biden allow it? We're talking about millions of dollars in at least 2 countries.
Did you talk about China or your deal with China?
No.
A 12-hour flight over?
No, of course not.
That never came up?
No.
Less than 2 weeks after that trip, BHR Partners was launched, a private equity firm funded in part by Chinese banks.
He has come forward and said it was a mistake on his part to be on the board.
My son's business dealings were not anything with everybody that he's talking about.
What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board.
Hunter Biden holds an equity stake in a company that's taken over $1.5 billion in loans from the Chinese government. This is obviously an issue.
What they said is China would prefer Joe Biden.
China and Iran
want to see Donald Trump's defeat, and they're looking for ways to make that happen.
China's a great nation, and we should hope for the continued expansion.
Growth of China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
And there's much more to come.
And now the steel mill ain't even there.
Joe Biden siempre ha sido débil con los socialistas. Biden traicionó a los nicaragüenses. Votó para enviar la industria farmacéutica de Puerto Rico a China comunista. ¿Y cómo nos vamos a olvidar de sus regalos absurdos al régimen cubano o de sus elogios al dictador Maduro mientras asesinaba a los venezolanos? Ahora Biden ha publicado un plan de gobierno con el socialista Bernie Sanders y está respaldado por el castrochavista colombiano Gustavo Petro. Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Biden ha dejado clarísimo que él es la marioneta de los chavistas. Por eso, todos los hispanos tenemos que unirnos y votar por el presidente Trump para salvar a esta gran nación. Aquí no queremos socialismo.
I'm Donald Trump, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President, Inc.
They call us deplorable.
Basket of deplorables.
Bad people.
Not very good people.
Joe Biden, the media, and the liberal establishment mock us.
The credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump.
Disgracefully hope for the president's death. President Trump stands with us, the people who work for a living, care for our families, worship God, and stand for our flag. And we're proud to say Donald Trump is our president.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Good evening. Oops, getting a little ahead of myself. Forgot to turn off that. That is one of the stories that is coming up. There we go. How you doing? It is once again another day. I have my camera all screwy up. There we go. Let me fix that camera. Sorry about that, folks. That does happen when you start messing with a bunch of stuff and you just kind of forget one thing or another. So welcome back to another episode of Fighting for the Republic. And you can catch me on these venues: Facebook, Parler, Gab, once again, DLive, Twitter, Periscope, Twitch, and once in a while, YouTube, depending on the way they want to act. I appreciate all of you coming in. It really has been a very busy week, especially for the president. He's hit 3 rallies a day. Hello, Joanne. Welcome. So he has been hitting 3 rallies a day. He was in Michigan yesterday. He was in today. He's going to be in tomorrow. Donald Trump Jr. is going to be here tomorrow in Michigan. A little nippy, but hey, that ain't gonna stop nobody. The president is just gonna keep on doing the rallies. I think he's gonna hit like 3 a day for the next what are we at? 3 days or 4 days left for the until the election. Make sure you get out and vote in person. And I just learned that you can still change your vote until Monday afternoon in Michigan. If you'd say, well, we don't like that other guy, Biden. He's kind of a creepy. What happened? I must have missed that part. Well, I hope the president's okay. He's really getting it going. Had Ted Nugent there yesterday with a great 3 days. Oh, he loves it. Don't you see him dancing? He loves it. He is a dynamo. 3 days to go. Wow. See, it's going by so fast. You know, just before, not too long ago, it was only, 3 weeks, and then 2, now 3 days. Holy smokes, man. I'm telling you. Well, yes, technically it's almost Saturday. At least here. But he loves it. He is looking good. He looks like he's feeling good. You had Melania. You have Ivanka and Don Jr. hitting the trail. Really? Oh, that's bullshit. I must have missed that. That's got to be Whitmer's doing. You know, she's being a... Never mind. But that's bullshit. And I think they did that deliberately. Oh, man. And I was almost tempted to go there, too, if I didn't have to work. Man, you know, she's doing this deliberately, and we all know it. Because she's going to get her ass beat when it comes to re-election. Because people aren't going to tolerate this tyranny. But our biggest story and biggest... Oh, I'm sure, but he understands, you know. He knows that we all love him. We all want to see him. It's terrible what they're doing to him. It's deliberate. But, you know, he's got another rally tomorrow in Grand Traverse at, I believe, 1:30. Watch a lot of people be there. Let's hope. I mean, let's hope they're not going to be cucks and keep the people away who want to see this man. It is disgraceful. So, the big story, obviously, is the Biden story. I can't really show a whole lot, and it's very unfortunate that big tech is being the way they are being. But first, I wanted to go to, let's get a couple of DOJ. I was going to do it a little bit differently, but this is really kind of important. And this is kind of a story that's been around. He is the best president ever. There will never be another. But I wanted to start off with this story from Department of Justice. U.S. Marshal operations result in recovering 27 missing children in Virginia. The president and DOJ are really on the ball, getting these kids that have been missing for probably a long time. And it's unfortunate that they went through such a horrendous ordeal. This has actually been on Twitter a while, but this is the actual Department of Justice file. DOJ today announced the completion of a 5-day law enforcement double operation Find Our Children throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia that resulted in the recovery of 27 previously missing children. The operation also confirmed the location of 6 additional children previously reported as missing but subsequently discovered by the U.S. Marshals Service as being in custody with their legal guardians. Led by Deputy U.S. Marshal from the Eastern and Western District of Virginia. Also with members of the U.S. Marshal Service Capital Area Regional Fugitive task force and special agents. Police officers have discovered numerous federal, state, local law enforcement, yada yada yada. Okay, let's kind of get to the whole story there. It goes on to say the Department of Justice has declined to or decided to protecting the almost vulnerable children in our society. Operation Find Our Children does just that. Deputy General Jeffrey Rosen, while in West Virginia operations, is the most recent recovery of endangered and missing children, led by the U.S. Marshal Service this year. They have also recovered more than 440 kids. That is probably the most I've ever heard recovered. Thank you very much, Marshals. In Georgia, Ohio, Indiana, Louisiana, and other states. Besides this intensive, the recovery children are now out of harm's way. I love it. I love these stories when children get rescued, and it is once again very unfortunate this has happened to them. There's a lot of cruel people out there, and I thank our Justice Department, who really have a good heart in doing their job on getting these kids back. In other DOJ news, Taiwan company pleads guilty to trading secrets theft in criminal case involving the PRC, state-owned company. The Federal Justice Grand Jury has indicted the UMC in September of 2018, along with the Fujian, I can't pronounce this circuit company, state-owned enterprise by the People's Republic of China, of course, China, and 3 individuals of conspiracy to steal convoy and possible stolen trade secrets of an American semiconductor company, Microtechnology Inc., for the benefit state-owned enterprises of the PRC. As a result of today's pleading guilty plea and acquirance with an applying plea agreement, UMC, who Americans deploy represents are publicly traded in the New York Stock Exchange, will pay a fine. A fine. The second largest ever in the Criminal Trade Act. Secret publication is subject to a 3-year term of probation and corporate with the United States. Gee, ain't that nice? Hi, Jackson. How you doing? Welcome. These companies need to be more than just a little slap on the wrist. The fine probably was a little tap on the hand. They need some hard time. Somebody's got to go down. Because I don't know about all of you, but I'm getting sick of China stealing all of our stuff. It's just not working for me. Hate to say it. When you have a entity, if you will, the PMRC, as much as they've stolen over the years, been sold and bought by various politicians, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, you know, it really damages our country. We have, the only reason, my personal feeling is China's in a position they are in is because of stolen and sold secrets from the U.S. Practically everything they have militarily and technologically is from us. They would be nothing if we did not have better politicians who knew better. But greed has become the thing in the way of their life, which hopefully AG Barr and Durham will put a halt to. Know what I mean? Cyber attacks targets U.S. healthcare. Now they're going after healthcare systems, expecting to cause panic. This is from Gray Jarrett. Now, Gray Jarrett used to work for Fox News. I don't think he still does. Federal Alert has co-authored a Department of Homeland Security and Department of Health of Human Services warning of cyber attacks. According to the Associated Press, the agencies are warning that cyber criminals are unleashing a wave of data scrambling, external attempts against the U.S. healthcare system designed to lock up hospital information systems. Obviously, the corona cases are reportedly rising. Bullshit. Certain states across the country, the healthcare system is already vulnerable. Adding a cyber attack could prevent catastrophic. Not only that, but they get our personal healthcare information, which a certain governor in Michigan, I won't name names at this point, is accused of giving our healthcare information to a third party, DNC. Hopefully something will come of that. It's just as bad as what the Chinese do. Now they're just trying to lock us out. That really could cause a lot of problems in our hospitals. Hey, Henry. What's up? Now that I got that out of the way, those are a couple of stories that came across the wire. Now for some really more, not that those weren't important, but these are really kind of hard hit, upfront times. They are very, and you know what? The Democrats are going to start blaming the Russians when it's really the Chinese. I don't think the Russians really had the technology anymore or the will. They're just going to sit back and let the Chinese terrorize us for a while. Not that, because right now, with everything going on, with the Biden tapes, they're trying to blame the Russians. At least the Democrats are, when it's really the Chinese. And this is a serious issue when you have people who are implicated in these tapes trying to divert back to Russia, because I've heard of a certain senator who is found in those tapes, Chucky. But because of all the censorship that we have going on between the big three tech companies, they kind of got lambasting the other day, but I don't think that's really going to do anything. But maybe our FCC will do something. But there's also another lawsuit going on from a couple days ago.
Tonight, the Justice Department is picking on someone its own size. The Trump administration's legal arm is suing Google for antitrust violations. The government says Google abuses its dominance in online search and advertising to stifle competition and harm consumers. Google calls the lawsuit deeply flawed. Correspondent Jillian Turner has our story tonight from Washington.
The suit has been over a year in the making, with Attorney General Bill Barr directly involved in planning, according to Justice Department sources. Now DOJ and 11 states are accusing Google of violating antitrust laws. Writing, Google no longer competes only on the merits, but instead uses its monopoly power and billions in monopoly profits to lock up key pathways to search on mobile phones, browsers, and next-generation devices. The end result is no one can feasibly challenge Google's dominance in search and search advertising. Barr adds this is a monumental case for the Department of Justice and, more importantly, for the American consumer. Fox News has learned the litigation is the result of a broad investigation into Google's business practices. Officials quickly lasered in on the company's alleged anti-competitive practices. 90% of all web searches in America are done through Google's search engine. That's because Google allows companies like Apple to include its search engine in its products for free. In return, Google demands its search engine be used exclusively. Senate Finance Chairman Chuck Grassley says there's only one path forward.
Monopolies under our laws have to be questioned, and if they're anti-competitive and violating the antitrust laws, they have to be prosecuted.
DOJ argues Google's financial power leads to less choices, poorer quality, and higher ad prices, which in turn hurt Google's users, advertisers, and millions of small businesses. But some experts caution DOJ's suit could ultimately hurt consumers more than help.
Consumers enjoy Google products. They're often free. They choose them when given a choice. These are products that innovate rapidly.
Google agrees, calling the lawsuit deeply flawed.
If this case is correct, it will make it harder for consumers potentially to access Google, to access a search service that they love and they choose to use.
And tonight, Fox News obtains a memo from CEO Sundar Pichai to employees, telling them to ignore the noise and stay deeply focused on their mission.
Censorship.
Tonight, tech insiders are telling us the future of this lawsuit does not hinge on the outcome of the presidential election. It is going forward full steam ahead, regardless of who's in the Oval Office come January 20th. Now, it is true that reining in big tech has become a truly bipartisan issue here in Washington over the last couple of years. So it seems, Brett, Google is finally facing a reckoning. Brett?
Jillian Turner, live outside DOJ. Jillian, thanks. Also break.
Now, you are exactly right. Now, those old enough to remember the bell system, remember that? There was only the bell. And it had to break up because it was a monopoly. Same thing with Google. Google is not that great. And if they think they're the best, they're not the best. Trust me. You can't really use voice chat when it comes to Google. It doesn't give you the correct information you're looking for. Yes, they are blocking, of course. Yeah, my bell. They have blocked a lot of information, and somebody slipped a few months ago and turned the switch off. And I heard there was loads of information they found, just tons of information they went through, and then apparently they turned it back on because they didn't know how long it'd be on. So it is really dangerous to have, especially Google. They are and I hate bringing it back up because it is a product of China. We've all known, and it's very much the same. They should be broken up. A lot of companies like Amazon, I believe, should be broken up. They're a monopoly. Smart business, yes. Monopoly, yes. And it just should not be. There's a little bit of, I want to get to this first, I will play. Let's see. There was one thing I wanted to play before another. Please excuse. I'm working with many screens. Because I want to do this correctly. Okay. James O'Keefe, as I showed the other night, had confronted a worker, a poll worker. I think she was looking for a ballot chaser, they're called. And apparently she was fudging in the ballot and was caught. But there is a follow-up. And this was from Texas, from the congressional candidate Monroe Gomez Gonzalez, excuse me.
Joanne, this is James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. Raquel Rodriguez is on tape breaking the law. She works for you, and I'd like your comment.
No, sir, she doesn't work for me.
She doesn't work for you?
No.
And this is another issue that the president has brought up about voter fraud. And the Democrats, of course, do not want to say and admit there are, because this is usually how they cheat. And I've said it before, I don't care what party you're from, cheating in an election is wrong. Cheating in general is wrong.
She worked for me 2 years ago. She worked for me in a city council campaign.
Okay.
And she worked for me in a general election in 18.
But she doesn't currently work for you?
No, sir.
And when she did work for you, are you aware that she was breaking the law, changing people's votes? Can I talk to you out here?
No, because Tony said she implicated me in some way.
She did implicate you in a certain way. She talked about the ballots that she was paying for, which is illegal, violation of state and federal law.
She didn't do any ballots for me.
Can elections be bought and sold in Texas?
Absolutely not.
That's what she's doing in the tapes, though.
Well, then that's y'all.
That's y'all? That's not me, that's her.
If Tony or whatever y'all are doing can prove that has nothing to do with me.
She can't chase ballots. She calls me and I chase the ballot. So she's got a list. And she knows because she's got inside connections.
She is not working for me.
Do you know this Republican congressman that she's working for currently in San Antonio?
She's working for a congressman?
Yeah, now she is a political consultant for a congressman, a potential congressman. And she said she could get at least 5,000 votes for $55,000, and she needed to be paid in cash. Have you ever witnessed these sort of transactions before?
Because I don't work for her.
Understood. So you didn't know anything about her illegal activities when she was working with you? Nothing. They never do. No one ever knows about the illegal stuff until you show them.
So now you're insulting me, sir. You're going to insult me, you can get off my porch.
So I'll get off your porch if you ask me to. I'm insulted that people are breaking the law here in Texas.
I'm insulting that you're saying I have anything to do with it because I don't.
Okay, you have nothing to do with this.
Me, sir. Why are you saying she works for me?
That's what she says in the tapes. Is she incorrect?
You know how many people have said they work for me to get a job? No.
You're an important person here in San Antonio.
No, I'm not an important person, but I'm a long-time worker. What? Get off my porch.
All right, I'll get off your porch. So we did have an interesting conversation with Joanne Ramon, a very powerful person here in San Antonio. She says a lot of people work for her. She asked me to get off her property, so I'm getting off her property. Should I insulted her by asking questions? I'm insulted that people can buy votes in Texas. There she is through the glass. She's just shutting the door now.
To be a reporter. And I think he does a great job.
Totally, I'm a fan of you guys.
Hey, Mauro, James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. Did you ever pay anyone in cash for anything?
No.
No? Okay. And no slush funds for gifts?
No.
Motto allowed me $2,500 to buy gifts.
Why did you give a random volunteer your credit card, though?
Random volunteer credit card. Yeah, to get to the poll. I don't know.
Mom, I got the millionaire. A millionaire that's like, go do whatever you need to do. Here's all my credit cards.
How do you, she bragged about you being this millionaire that can afford her services.
Like model right now. So he was paying me $5,000 a month, and now he's paying me $8,000 a month.
I don't know. I'm a nice guy, and I've been taken advantage of many times.
I don't take advantage of him.
Are you worried? Since you could be implicated in the Attorney General's investigation if it is in fact found out that what Raquel is saying is true. Raquel is saying $2,500 from your campaign for gifts for electioneering.
So no. Listen, I'm about to talk right here.
You left the event to escape me?
No.
So you do know Mrs. Rodriguez? You do know who that is? Did you pay her in cash?
I didn't want to take away from this important event.
You drove the RV yourself, which was, interesting.
It's waving at the camera. Look at this guy. He's driving away from me right now.
You left with the RV, you got on the RV and you left your campaign staff there.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
You got rid of my ride home. How am I supposed to get
I don't know. I didn't mean to get your ride home. I'm just asking questions.
And they were asking me if I could take them. You didn't? This woman was saying, "Oh, can you get me a ride home because Maura left without me?"
My job is to ask questions. Sometimes people don't answer them. You want me to give you a ride?
You're gonna have to.
You want me to get you an Uber?
You're gonna have to when I get ready to leave.
I don't know if I can. That's an illegal campaign contribution. I don't know if I can do that. Let's go.
Remember that?
What I did is I went around the other side and I had them called.
Hope you're getting me a lift home.
I sleep good at night.
It seems like he does.
Hope you're getting me a lift home.
And here is the nice guy who left his entire staff stranded.
Hey Mauro, James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. I got a question for you. We have a videotape of a woman named Raquel Rodriguez.
Model allowed me $2,500 to buy gifts, and you see how he's represented well. And what did she say? Like, wow. So what is she going to do? She's going to call on the phone and say, man, Model sent me this badass shop.
Look at this.
Listen, I'm about to talk right here. How about we talk about it a little bit
So the issue is that we have Raquel Rodriguez on the tape saying she has committed voter fraud on your behalf. She said she committed voter fraud on your behalf, sir.
I'm sorry?
I said we're
He's ignoring me. Mauro, how much did you pay Raquel Rodriguez?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Did you pay her? She says you paid her.
I budgeted everything, right? Okay, boom, you do it. So he was paying me $5,000 a month, and now he's paying me $8,000 a month. Why? Because I took in these extra jobs.
How much did you pay? Did you pay her in cash? Did you pay her in cash? Do you know who Raquel Rodriguez is?
Do you know that let me explain something.
Please.
My community has asked me to train you guys. Are you with the media?
I am with the media, yes.
I'm supposed to train you.
We have video.
My community has asked me to train you.
Did you pay Raquel Rodriguez? Because if you don't answer my question.
Did he really say train him?
Law enforcement's going to ask you that question.
If the Texas Attorney General decides to prosecute her, yes, that's illegal.
Do you not know who Raquel Rodriguez is? He's ignoring us, and I'm not going to stop, so here we're going to keep going. Are elections bought and sold here in Texas?
Yeah. With all due respect, if you want to interview him, can you do it outside the line?
Sure, we want to speak with that man right there.
I'll tell him to go out
Thank you very much. So Ms. Rodriguez said you knew she was meeting with our folks, and you were not happy. How can you claim you didn't know what Rodriguez is doing if you even knew who she was and who she was meeting with? So you do know Mrs. Rodriguez. You do know who that is. Did you pay her in cash? He's literally driving the RVs. He's driving away from me right now. Look at this guy. He's driving away from me right now. Reporting from the Alamo, this is James O'Keefe with Project Veritas.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
You got rid of my ride home. How much
I don't know. I didn't mean to get you right. No, I'm just asking questions. My job is to ask questions. Sometimes people don't answer them. You want me to give you a ride?
You're gonna have to.
Let me get you an Uber?
You're gonna have to when I get ready to leave.
I don't know if I can. That's an illegal campaign contribution. I don't know if I can do that. Let's go.
Thank God for James O'Keefe. He is doing such a wonderful job. He is exposing these creeps like they are. Again, I don't care if he's a GOP dude. He doesn't deserve a vote. Hopefully he has an opponent that will go against him. We don't need people like that. I feel bad for the volunteers, though. I hope they at least call a ride for him. You know? There is a lot of censorship going on, and it's hitting all of us. Very dirty. How dare he use a Trump flag? Should not even have that. But with the continuous banning, shadow banning, everything else that Twitter, Facebook does to us, that we can't report anything freely. And if I can get it, I'll show you something amazing about what's going on. Yeah, not the Congress. And but the one thing is going on. Oh, I wanted to do this one for you first. And it has to do with good old Hunty. Let's see.
Searching for a new Buick? Well, good news. The search is over.
The Washington Journal a little credit. Got to give them where credit is due for publishing this. There's the real interesting part. Schumer wants this covered up. Wonder why? What are we hiding? Schumer urges FBI director to ignore the rule of law. He's been ignoring it anyway. Ray has. He's been sitting on this since December of last year. The vice determined. Let's kind of get out the formalities. Schumer bombshell discovers our staff has after a tough review of his staff, Representative Jim Jordan claims that they have independently verified the containments of the laptop. Our staff has numerous conversations, Jordan said Tuesday, which have independently confirmed for us that it is a fact these emails are real and authentic. Unfortunately, not everybody in Washington, D.C. is very happy. He is Chuck Schumer, minority leader in the Democrat of the Senate, is urging the FBI to ignore these contents. And why would we do that? Lil Bird said because Schumer also has some ties with China and they're on the laptop. Imagine that. And of course we know Nancy Pelosi and her son have ties to China. Seems a lot of Democrats do. Isn't that amazing? I wonder who else is on that laptop. I'm sure we will find out very soon. Now, because of the censorship going on that is massive, and I just kind of want to play a little bit to remind our good friends out there in the big tech world of some of what I'm going to basically go for Jack Dorsey. Why? Because a lot of people more on Twitter are getting banned. We've been getting shadow banned for a few years now. And now we're getting censored. If we share anything as far as Biden, Hunter Biden that is, you're automatically locked out and eventually kicked off. Luckily, there are other platforms like Gab and Parler to go to. We don't need Twitter anymore. But Dorsey had a little scuffle, if you will, with Senator Ted Cruz.
The people using the service as much information as possible.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Cruz.
Chairman, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. The three witnesses we have before this committee today collectively pose, I believe, the single greatest threat to free speech in America and the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections. Yesterday, I spent a considerable amount of time speaking with both Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Pichai. I have concerns about the behavior of both of their companies. I would note that Facebook is at the minimum at least trying to make some efforts in the direction of defending free speech. I appreciate their doing so. Google, I agree with the concerns.
Except for their fact checker, if you will,
that Senator Klobuchar raised. I think Google has more power than any company on the face of the planet. And the antitrust concerns are real. The impact of Google is profound. And I expect we will have continued and ongoing discussions about Google's abuse of that power and its willingness to manipulate search outcomes to influence and change election results. But today, I want to focus my questioning on Mr. Dorsey and on Twitter. Because of the three players before us, I think Twitter's conduct has by far been the most egregious. Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a broad spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels with which...
Not if they don't hear information. If you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything?
Well, we have policies that are focused on making sure that more voices on the platform are possible. We see a lot of abuse and harassment, which ends up silencing people and having them leave from the platform.
All right, Mr. Dorsey, I find your opening questions, your opening answers absurd on their face. But let's talk about the last 2 weeks in particular. As you know, I have long been concerned about Twitter's pattern of censoring and silencing individual Americans with whom Twitter disagrees. But 2 weeks ago, Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook, crossed a threshold that is fundamental in our country. 2 weeks ago, Twitter made the unilateral decision to censor the New York Post in a series of 2 blockbuster articles, both alleging evidence of corruption against Joe Biden, the first concerning Ukraine, the second concerning communist China. And Twitter made the decision, number one, to prevent users, any user, from sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we...
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018, go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hack materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a document, and in this instance, the New York Post documented what it said the source was, which it said it was a laptop owned by Hunter Biden that had been turned into a repair store. So they weren't hiding what they claimed to be the source. Is it your position that Twitter, when you can't tell the source, blocks press stories?
No, not at all. Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect. And we changed it.
Today, right now, the New York Post is still blocked from tweeting 2 weeks later.
It's not true.
Yes, they have to log into their account, which they can do at this minute, delete the original tweet, which fell under our original enforcement actions, and they can tweet the exact same material from the exact same article, and it would go through.
So, Mr. Dorsey, your ability is you have the power to force a media outlet. Let's be clear. The New York Post isn't just some random guy tweeting. The New York Post has the 4th highest circulation of any newspaper in America. The New York Post is over 200 years old. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. And your position is that you can sit in Silicon Valley and demand of the media that you can tell them what stories they can publish, and you can tell the American people what reporting they can hear. Is that right?
No, this was a, every person, every account, every organization that signs up to Twitter agrees to a terms of service. Terms of service is
so
published.
Media outlets must genuflect and obey your dictates if they wish to be able to communicate with readers. Is that right?
No, not at all. We recognized an error in this policy, and specifically the enforcement.
You're still blocking their posts. You're still blocking their posts. Right now, today, you're blocking their posts.
We're not blocking the post. Anyone can tweet.
Can the New York Post post on their Twitter account?
If they go into their account.
No is your answer to that. No, unless they genuflect and agree with your dictates. Let me ask you something. You claimed it was because of a hacked materials policy. I find that facially highly dubious and clearly employed in a deeply partial way. Did Twitter block the distribution of the New York Times' story a few weeks ago that purported to be based on copies of President Trump's tax returns?
We didn't find that a violation of our terms of service and this policy in particular, because it was reporting about the material. It wasn't distributing the material.
Okay, well, that's actually not true. That they posted what they purported to be original source materials, and federal law, federal statute makes it a crime, a federal felony, to distribute someone's tax returns against their knowledge. So that material was based on something that was distributed in violation of federal law, and yet Twitter gleefully allowed people to circulate that. But when the article was critical of Joe Biden, Twitter engaged in rampant censorship and silencing.
And again, we recognized errors in that policy. We changed it within 24 hours. This is.
But you're still blocking the New York Post. You haven't changed it.
We have changed it. They can log into their account, delete the original tweet. That was
You forced a Politico reporter to take down his post about the New York Post as well. Is that correct?
Within that 24-hour period, yes. But we, as the policy has changed, anyone can tweet
So
this article.
Twitter takes the view you can censor the New York Post, you can censor Politico, presumably you can censor the New York Times or any other media outlet. Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
Let's give Mr. Dorsey a few seconds to answer that, and then we'll have to conclude this segment.
Well, we're not doing that, and this is why I opened this hearing with calls for more transparency. We realize we need to earn trust more. We realize that more accountability is needed to show our intentions and to show the outcomes.
Thank you, Senator.
So I hear the concerns and acknowledge them, but we want to fix it with more transparency.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
Did we not hear this last time they were up there? Oh, well, we'll fix it. Yeah, we'll fix it, right? Now, I have not read it, but I've been seeing a little bit of tweets that Dorsey is being blackmailed. Whether that is true or not, I do not know yet. It is something I could look into, and I'll try to remember to do so. But when he says, oh yeah, you can tweet, but it's for those not very tech savvy, that is called shadow banning. Nobody will see it. And everybody has gotten to be afraid to retweet anything of the Joe Biden story and Hunter Biden for being banned. It's very risky. Me showing you what I have already is risky for me being banned. I'm pretty sure, at least from Twitter, and they will probably block me from Facebook. And I'll report that next time when I check after this broadcast. I'll keep an eye on it. So, a lot of us are. They have not only banned me, they banned people like Dilly, Praying Medic, all of them. Many people. You have Your Voice America, all of them. Because they're telling the truth, and the big techs don't want you to hear it. Now, what they have over Facebook, Google, could become very relevant and maybe criminal. Who knows? Until that information is released, we won't know. And how does it affect the US? And it's got to be China. I'm not going to the Russia, I'm going to the China. Because that's what the Democrats want you to look at. So, until we understand what China has over these companies, they're still going to play these little games. And there is a law. No, actually, let me play this real quick on what they're talking about.
We trust the social media world to be able to.
Shoot, let me take that down. Sorry about that. But it is really important that this behavior stops. Because when you have a free society and you're being banned or censored for freedom of speech, it hurts all of us.
To share stories. Well, we learned this week you can't share stories. The Blaze was flagged for advertising a show about election fraud. We were throttled and flagged for an ad, for tweeting out a message that said you have to watch tonight's show. It's on election fraud. Wait,
Thank you
what?
for stopping in, Jack.
We were flagged because headlines can be headlines can be deceiving. You need more context here. Yes, and we have it at 9 p.m. Eastern. I mean, excuse me? So why is this happening? Well, let's just go through some of the people that work at these places. Jack Dorsey, he's the CEO of Twitter. He's an active Democratic donor. Omid Kordestani, director and executive chairman. He matched $530,000 with Jack Dorsey's donation to the ACLU. Then he donated thousands over the years to candidates and the DNC. Ned Siegel is their CFO. He has a history of donating to Democratic candidates. Evan Williams, former Twitter CEO, current board member. He donated $800,000 in 2016, $229,000 in 2018, $465,000 in 2020. He's apologized for Twitter's role in electing Donald Trump. Bridget Cognier, public policy director. She's in charge of government election partnerships with leading global governments and political publishers, including content strategy for Twitter. She interned and was press secretary for multiple Democratic politicians, plus worked on the Rachel Maddow show.
Imagine that.
Nicholas Basillo, senior communications manager and former communications manager for Kamala Harris. He was the press secretary for Kamala Harris. Carlos Mahoney, former director of public policy. He left to join Joe Biden's transition team. Worked at the White House under the Obama administration. Worked under Hillary Clinton. Brandon Borman, VP of Global Communications. He donated thousands recently to Joe Biden, was the media spokesman for the decision to fact-check Trump's tweets. Those are the people at Twitter. Where are all the conservatives? Here's Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg donated some to Republicans, but mainly Democrats, is currently donating all the voting boxes. So you can go to a Facebook box and just stuff your ballot in there. Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer, donated primarily to Democrats, openly Democrat, and endorsed Hillary Clinton. Andy Stone, the policy communications director at Facebook, he joined the Democratic House Majority PAC. He was the press secretary to Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and the press secretary to Senator Barbara Boxer. Anna McAndrew, she is the global policy manager. She's in charge of global elections. She worked for Joe Biden, donated to Biden in 2020 and Clinton in 2016. Brian Rice, the director of public policy, was the legislative assistant for John Kerry for 3 years. Probir Menta is the global public policy person. She was in the office of the U.S. Trade Representative, executive office for the president, for 7 years when the president was Obama. You also have Jessica Hertz, former director and associate general counsel. She oversees the ethical issues and on transition team for Joe Biden. She worked on principal deputy counsel in that office under the Vice President Biden from 2012 to 2014. I don't know. Stu, what do you... I mean, is there a... Have you noticed a trend with all of the people that are in senior positions at Facebook or Twitter?
Almost too far right is what I picked up.
Well, that's
there.
one way of looking at it, and I'm sure the press would look at it that way.
You think there'd be some... This is a crazy concept. Diversity of thought, diversity of... No. It's just not, it's not necessary.
No, well, they actually, I believe, think they are diverse because they might have, some Hillary Clinton supporters in there. So you go from Antifa to Hillary Clinton.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have the whole spectrum there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to somebody, some podcast, I think, and it was a liberal who was talking about this and kind of complaining about the woke culture in that sort of world. And it explained it, I thought, in an interesting way, where liberals and the people on the left inherently understand that if you don't have any black people or Hispanics or women at a workplace, there's a lack of diversity. You're not getting all those different viewpoints. They inherently get that. And if you were to say, I'm just going to hire all white people, they would inherently say that's a terrible thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to actual differences in thought, not skin color, which is, it doesn't necessarily form your viewpoints, your actual differences in thought, they can't understand why you'd even include someone who's just moderately left, let alone a conservative. You don't want any of those people around. Everyone has to agree. Everyone has to understand that sexual preference is now an insult. Like, all of these things have to, there's these hardcore rules. You can't break any of them. Anyone with any different opinion needs to be, expunged, as Keith Olbermann would explain. That's not
I like
healthy.
the way you overpronounced it, too.
Expunged. There's like an extra G in there? What happened? But that is, I think that's the way that they think. And, I think you'd think that these social media companies, who, again, get half of their money from conservatives clicking on ads, would understand this and want to please that audience. But they don't seem to be doing that.
Well, because
right now.
it's about race. The only thing that is diverse is sexual, dare I say, preference.
Oh my gosh!
And
race. You were about to say it,
right?
Sexual orientation.
Yeah, that's the only differences. They don't think that a difference in opinion is important. A difference in opinion has to be stopped because they know the truth. And the truth is, all white people are racist. So I see people by race. I mean, they are by definition racist. Now, not the Klan sort of racist, I don't think. Although when it comes to Jews, many on the left are the Nazi kind of racist. However, they are racist because that's the only filter they see. They disagree with Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
And what Martin Luther King said was, judge me by who I am, what I do, what my character is. Judge me by my skills and my talent and my character and what I can do.
They hate that.
They hate that.
They literally, just like they used to love sexual preference, and now they hate it. Look at the writings of Ibram Kendi, who outwardly explains this and says you should be discriminating against white people. I think he basically describes it as the people who created the system. But he's implicit and explicit at times, saying that that's just white people, right? So the only way to solve those problems that he sees from the past, real and imagined, is to, as he says, discriminate in the future. Discriminate in the present. Discriminate. He's advocating for discrimination. And his book is on the shelves at every Target in America right now. On the end cap, by the way, in most of them. So if you're going by, if you're walking through a Target, you're going to see Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram X. Kendi. And these are the things he's advocating and targeting babies with. Babies.
Well, white babies.
Yeah, because, white babies, that's true. I guess babies of color do not need this information.
Right.
But white
because
babies
they can't be racist. But
right.
White babies
Impossible.
are racist from birth, so you have to start teaching them that.
These are unhealthy practices, Glenn, for society.
They really are.
They really are.
It is everything If you were looking to destroy a society, which they are, it's everything that you would say you wanted to do. I mean, I saw the Communist Party USA from the 1920s, their list of things they felt they had to do to destroy America. It's everything that's happening right now. Everything that's happening right now. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Really? Because there were like 15 things on the list, and every one of them have been
really
done. What are the odds that just mysteriously happened that way? Nothing was done to stop the destruction of America by its foes internally, but all of the foes list, that was done? Wow. What a coincidence.
He has to win this election. He's not going to win the election as a progressive. And that's basically it. At a certain point, we have to wait for like the boomers to die off.
Do you think like the Georgians are stupid enough?
Yeah. You can spread that to like your...
Whoops. Okay. Well, it's the wrong clip. Sorry about that, because it was a different race where they were in Georgia, where they were suppressing the vote once again. My bad. I picked the wrong clip. It's okay. I wanted to give you an example, but I think a lot of us already know and are very aware of the shenanigans that big tech always practices in.
Bad and disturbing that is happening at Facebook. And Sohrab Armani.
Hi, I'm Cade Courtley, former Navy SEAL platoon commander, sniper, CIA contractor, and author.
Armari is with us. He is the op-ed editor of the New York Post. He was with us earlier this week or last week talking about being banned and still not having access. The New York Post still doesn't have access to their Twitter feed, and they won't get it until they retract the Hunter Biden.
Well, wait, did Jack just not say that they were allowed?
Story, which is looking more and more like the biggest scandal in American political history every single day. But there's a new angle on this. Sohrab, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good morning, Glenn.
You broke some news yesterday that you can't really tweet or retweet because headlines don't tell the full story. You can read the article on Twitter before retweeting. You have the story, Meet Your Chinese Facebook. Tell me about it.
It's, the headline, just so people can find it, because social media is so screwy in terms of how it treats the New York Post, and that's a separate shameful story. The headline is Meet Your Chinese Facebook Censors.
Yep.
And the gist of the story is that last week, after observing what Facebook was doing to the New York Post, a former Facebook high-ranking insider got in touch with me and shared a number of things. But among the things he shared was an opportunity to shed light on the actual mechanics of how Twitter does its censorship. And what
Twitter
it reveals,
Twitter or Facebook?
I apologize, Facebook.
Okay, all right.
What it reveals to me, as I argue in the article, is the most sophisticated censorship mechanism possibly in human history. And it's a team at Facebook called Hate Speech Engineering. George Orwell, Call Your Office. And it's a team that is mostly based in Seattle, Washington. And this insider shared with me the directory of the staffers who work on that team. And he noted, and we verified using LinkedIn, that at least 6 of these team members are Chinese nationals. What the team does is they basically use machine learning, teaching computers to do things on their own without the need for direct human action. So they use machine learning and what's called neural networks to rejigger the news feed that you get. So you have Glenn's Facebook feed, what you see, what all your friends have shared. What this team does is ensure that certain content goes up on top and for that they get discretionary bonuses according to the insider. But it also ensures that certain other content shows dead last. Like, for example, in this case, it seems like this is the mechanism they use, a New York Post story that's damning about Hunter and Joe Biden 3 weeks out before an election.
Now, let me ask you this. These are people that they're PhDs and they have H-1B visas, so they're coming in from China. Are they experts in the Chinese censorship programs?
Well, we don't know. What I looked up is, and out of courtesy to Facebook, when we reached out to them, we didn't share their names, even though we have their names. We have a lot of information about them that you can access once you know their names and where they work. But we didn't share that just out of courtesy to Facebook. But
good for you.
What we did find is that at least one of them used to work for Huawei, which is a Chinese tech conglomerate that is closely bound up with the Chinese regime. A lot of them went to universities like University of Nanjing, the Chinese Academy of Sciences. These are all, it's not like here where it's like, I don't know, George Washington U or what have you. These are all state-based, state-supported entities, and they have deep links to the Chinese security apparatus. So even though we don't know exactly whether they did censorship for the Chinese regime, what we do know is that the institutions that trained them, are state entities. And another one worked for, the signal service, signal telegraph service for the Chinese railway, again, a state enterprise. And look, because they're H-1Bs, a lot of tech companies hire H-1B employees, Indians, Chinese, Eastern Europeans. It's not all nefarious. A lot of them, to be honest, just, we have nothing against the fact that there's Chinese people working at Facebook. A lot of them just want to, share in the American dream and settle in this country. But because they're H-1Bs, it means that some of them could go back. So another worry is, will they then take back the techniques for social control that they perfected and learned at Facebook to the most repressive society when it comes to this stuff, and help Xi Jinping further repress the free flow of information in his own society?
This is so evil.
Creepy.
I mean, it is just evil what is happening right now, and we see it in what they're doing to you and the Post and your reporting. We know now. We have it from multiple sources, including a guy who was the CEO of the Biden firm that was, putting the Chinese deal together, confirming that email is true, that the big guy is Joe Biden. We have all that, and yet it's still being called a conspiracy theory, and you're not able to get your accounts back on social media.
Now, bear in mind, the gentleman you're talking about is a U.S. Navy veteran, served 4 years, and then got into business, including, probably to his regret, with Hunter Biden. And, he has come clean with a statement saying, to the extent that I have made political contributions, which are small, I've made them to Democratic causes and candidates. So he's not some Republican. This is Hunter Biden's business partner.
Right.
He's not some Republican figure. And he's saying, as a patriot, as someone who served in the U.S. military and the armed forces, it offends me that people talk about this stuff as Russian disinformation, because it sullies his reputation, right? When you talk about something that was a Russian conspiracy. So he just said, because of my conscience, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically my conscience tells me to come out clean and say, this is not Russian disinformation. A lot of stuff that was anti-Trump the past 4 years that Facebook and Twitter never censored truly was Russian disinformation, not least the famous, infamous dossier, the P-tape and so forth.
Well,
it was concocted by the Russians. This guy is saying, the stuff that the Post reporter is not Russian disinformation. And I think a lot of pundits, reporters, not to mention big tech CEOs, owe the New York Post a groveling apology, not that I'm holding my breath.
So there is that part, but there's now, a lot of us did not know about this, maybe some did. The FCC has a law on the book called the 230, law, and it is basically on censorship. Now, and I always pose this question to the lefties out there. What if your rights were violated? You were not allowed to assimilate in gatherings. Were not allowed to have your voice. Would you like it? It's still not right because, again, this is what the country was founded on. Excuse me. And it's very important that we all have a say. This is meddling in an election. This is information people need to know. See, I was fair. I played the one about the GOP candidate in Texas. Now, why would it not be fair to talk about Hunter Biden? I'm balancing it out. I'm not doing one or another. But what Hunter did was much more serious, and it is a national security. And on that note, the commissioner of the FCC was on Neil Cavuto.
FCC Commissioner. Commissioner, very good to have you back with us. Is it your sense, sir, that we are looking at the very least, revisiting Section 230 and the rules around it and how it is policed? At a minimum, it seemed like some changes are afoot. Maybe it depends on the election, but your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're at a watershed moment. If you look at the progress we've made over the last few weeks in terms of building momentum for reforming Section 230, we've never seen so many Republicans and conservatives standing up for free speech. Look, I watched a lot of the testimony this morning. Jack Dorsey made a number of claims that if they'd been statements on his own website, I think it would have been flagged as potential misinformation. He's trying to scare off those that want to reform 230 by claiming that any efforts to change that law is going to result in more censorship, not less. And he has it backwards. As the reporter just indicated, if other people's speech is on their website, they don't need to be liable for that. That's fine. But there's a second piece of the law, which is when they take down speech, courts have read that provision as giving them carte blanche to remove any speech they want. The purpose of reforming 230 is to actually put them through the higher statutory test before they take down any speech. The upshot of that is going to be less censorship, and that is great for our democracy.
So that's the point I wanted to follow up on, Commissioner. What if their solution to this is, all right, we won't take down anything, no matter how suspicious, no matter how crazy, we won't take it down and let the reader, user beware?
Yeah, I think that's a better path forward than where we are right now.
Notice this, Twitter and all the big tech companies, their stocks are way down.
One of the solutions that they're now offering is these ideas around quote unquote transparency. That's fine. I think we need more transparency, but that's really sleeves off the vest. They're not really copying to the fundamental reforms we need with 230. 230 right now, to your point, lays out specific categories of speech that if speech falls within that category, they can take it down, not just with the First Amendment rights that we all have, but with their bonus Section 230 protection. So I'm very comfortable with a regime in which we bring much more clarity to when you take speech down. And if the upshot of that is more speech, I think we're better for that. Let's let the American people make their own decisions. We don't need people sitting in Silicon Valley being the arbiters of truth. And I think, look, one of the reasons internet speech is so powerful in the first place is because people went there to get around the traditional gatekeepers that we had in mainstream media. And now the lack of gatekeepers that made the internet so attractive as a platform is ending.
Well,
and now Silicon Valley is stepping into the role of those gatekeepers. I think we're moving in the wrong direction. That's why 230 reform is so necessary.
What if you don't know where that speech, offensive or otherwise, Commissioner, is coming from? Wasn't that part of the problem in the 2016 election, that a lot of it was coming from abroad, and there was this hacking effort on the part of the Russians, we're told, that made it hard to discern what was real and what wasn't? I mean, what are social media companies' responsibilities with something like that? Forget about the tone or tenor or even whether it's conservative or liberal stories.
Yeah, the challenge there is there's no arbiter of truth when it comes to this. Right now, you've got this New York Post story, and you have some Democrats coming out and labeling it misinformation coming straight from the Kremlin. We don't need people like this trying to label this type of speech. Let's let people make their own minds up, because increasingly what we're seeing is this concept of misinformation, this concept of disinformation is being abused by people with gatekeeper authority simply to shut down political speech they don't agree with.
What if it really is, Commissioner, coming from the Kremlin? Now, believe me, I get your rationale and thinking here. You can't just be, pick and choose your battles. But what if the stories themselves are fake, that they're coming from another venue, they're coming from a foreign entity that's just trying to screw things up in election year?
Yeah, to your point, you've got to weigh the risk of misinformation with the risk of capturing in your misinformation efforts legitimate political speech. And where I come down with that is more speech is better. If something truly is foreign government misinformation or disinformation, let's have people identify it themselves. But there's too much of a risk factor, particularly that we're seeing right now. I think, look, the bottom line here, too, is Facebook, Twitter, these entities act like a publisher every single day. When they run these fact checks, when Twitter has their trending news section, these are publisher activities that Twitter is engaging in. And I think as we reform 230, we should be very clear about that, because that publisher conduct falls outside the protections of 230.
So it'll be interesting where that actually comes into play on what they plan on doing. I think they need tighter regulations when it comes to 230, very specific. Now, even if you're watching regular TV, it's our responsibility as the viewer and the people who broadcast is to research and make up our own minds and research and see how much fact there is to it. We should not take everything face value, because that's irresponsible on both parts. It is my responsibility as a broadcaster to give you the best information I can provide. And if I'm wrong, I'll tell you and I'll try to correct it. Not just go on my merry way and shovel the shit. And as a viewer, you need to make up your own mind. Do you want to believe this? If it's too far-fetched, do your own research. That's how it works. Twitter and Periscope and Facebook, they're not God. They're not news platforms. They are social media platforms. And they are denying the information for us to decipher whether to believe it or not. Now on the campaign trail, actually Laura Ingraham was in Michigan with the president today, which was pretty exciting. And here she is about Biden refusing to answer questions.
And his campaign is refusing to answer even basic questions regarding the Hunter Biden revelations. But now Biden has a new reason to hide. Fox News confirming just moments ago that the FBI seized Hunter's purported laptop last year in connection with a money laundering investigation, though it's unclear at this moment if the investigation is ongoing or if it's directly related to Hunter. Lots of questions remaining. David Marcus, New York correspondent for The Federalist.
Actually, I did see something that says they are definitely investigating this, and it did come from senators.
Joins me now. David, what can we conclude from the information?
Come on.
From the information.
Of course. Good story, and she freezes out. That's okay. I will try to unfreeze this for you. I may have to do it this way. I might have to refresh. Let's see if that'll work. It's also slow. But he is dodging because somebody actually heckled him on answering this story, and it got totally screwed up. But that's all right. I'll play it a different time. I'll just put a pin in it. Now, more information. And honestly, I'm really hesitant to play it because of what Jack and everybody else is doing to us. But I will play this one first. It's very short. It's on Twitter. Oops.
We found also emails where Hunter Biden, his business partner Devin Archer, and an advisor to the Ukraine energy company were talking openly about Hunter and getting Secret Service protection on all of these trips to Paris, to Seoul, to Manila, to Tokyo, and more. This had nothing to do with government business and had everything to do with his personal business dealings. So when you see this abuse, you got to say to yourself, what was going on with the vice president letting this happen?
Look, it's, I guess it's no surprise given Hunter Biden's problems, and there apparently are many, and they are legion. But misuse of government resources is also a serious problem. Although I will say that obviously the decisive objective here is to try to figure out whether in the movement of money from overseas interests, including China and the...
We found also...
So that's a little bit of that, and we're going to go to Rudy.
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani with Rudy's Common Sense. Today's show is a very important one because in many ways, many Americans can't get to hear this because it's being censored. It's being censored by big tech, big media, big Democrats. You don't get it on NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN,
I will have to give a little bit of credit to ABC. They did do a piece on this, and it was only recently.
You know the whole group of, I don't know what to call them. They're not journalists. It's getting closer. They're not even being Americans. This is the kind of censorship that used to happen in the Soviet Union before it was liberated by Ronald Reagan. This is the kind of censorship that goes on now in China, and this is the kind of censorship I never thought could happen in the United States of America, and it should never happen again, and there's only one way to make sure it doesn't happen again, and that is to defeat their purpose and defeat their unworthy candidate, Joe Biden.
Awesome.
I am going to explain to you the most critical crimes that emerge from the hard drive of Hunter Biden's and from the witnesses, all of whom, or most of whom, you can see on my podcast, some going back, oh my goodness, 8 months ago, and some as recently as the other day. But let me summarize it for you, because it is a little bit hard to follow. But I think if we look at it as a RICO case, Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization case, which is a case about the business of crime, you'll get it. And we'll just have to deal with about 5 of these incidents. The first one, that is the one that probably know the most about, is Ukraine. What happened in the Ukraine that was a crime? Very simple. Joe Biden was bribed by Mykola Zlochevsky, the head of a company called Burisma. And Burisma is an oil and gas company. The owner was one of the biggest crooks in Ukraine, one of the biggest members of organized crime, and probably a murderer. So I want to get you an idea right at the very beginning who the Bidens deal with. You're going to see a fair number of murderers, organized criminals, and spies. So Mykola Zlochevsky had a company called Burisma. His company was built crookedly when he was the Minister of Ecology. He gave his company all of the best mineral rights in Ukraine. And when he came out, he was worth $8-10 billion. When the government looked like it was going to fall, he stole $5 billion, left the country, was in exile, and lived in fear that the new president, Poroshenko, was going to take it from him. He soon found out that the new president was as big a crook, if not worse, than the old president, and that he could be reached. And he also soon found out that the most powerful man in Ukraine was Joe Biden when he was appointed point man by Obama, because he controlled all the money that was going to go to Ukraine. And Ukraine had $800,000 in the bank when their prior leader left with people like Zlochevsky. So Zlochevsky, knowing what the press keeps from you, that Joe Biden had a history as a sleazy Delaware politician and had been taking illegal money with his brother for 20 years, he set up contact with Joe and he offered him a deal. The deal was roughly something that would amount to about $14 to $15 million. Most of it would be paid through a no-show job for his son, Hunter Biden. Now, he never would have hired Hunter Biden for any other reason, because Hunter Biden was totally unqualified. He had already bankrupted a company, and he had just been thrown out of the United States Navy for failing a cocaine test. So he was virtually unemployable except to a Ukrainian gangster. And his father, despite the fact that his son suffered from addiction, had him work for the most crooked man in Ukraine. A sure prescription for that drug addiction to get worse. And who's responsible for that? Well, I guess Hunter is to some extent, but the father put him in a position that no decent father would ever do. For that reason alone, not only wouldn't I vote for him, but if I saw him, I'd spit in his face. You don't do this to your children just because you're so darn greedy to get money. Well, that's what he did. Exactly. He used him as a bag man. He never showed up in Ukraine. He never did anything meaningful, but he got paid $166,000 per month for a total of about 5 or 6 million paid that way. He got a laundered 3 million additional monies altogether. The Biden family got about $14 million in bribes, and then Biden did his job. When the prosecutor, Shokin, was about to move on the company, he had already arrested them, he was about to seize their assets, he came in, and as he explains, in his own words, in a confession that is as tight as you can get, he explains, I told Poroshenko, you got to get rid of the prosecutor or you don't get your $1 billion loan guarantee, which was critical to the survival of that country. That is also bribery, offering a thing of value in exchange for official action. Poroshenko offered him, not Poroshenko,
Quid pro quo.
Zlochevsky offered him $14 million in order to get the case fixed. That's thing of value in exchange for action. He did the same. He offered Poroshenko his $1 billion loan guarantee in exchange for firing the prosecutor. 2 bribery cases becomes 1 RICO predicate. Count 1 in the indictment. Penalty, minimum 15 years in jail. Loss of public office forever. Second one, Iraq. Joe was appointed point man in Iraq. Every time he gets appointed point man, 2 things happen. Joe fails for the United States, and Joe's family gets millions. Pretty good circumstantial evidence that they're a bunch of thieves. So Joe becomes point man for Iraq, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes James Biden, the crooked lobbyist for 20 years. The guy who was making thousands with Joe, not millions, thousands with Joe, doing crooked lobbying. And he becomes a partner in a $1.5 billion housing program in Iraq, and he doesn't know diddly squat about housing. Kind of like Hunter didn't know anything about oil and gas. The Bidens actually know nothing about anything, except they'll do anything for money. You know, Joe was the dumbest man in the Senate. He didn't know much about being in the Senate, but it was a good way for the family to become millionaires. People always say, what was the contribution of Joe Biden? Well, they have the 94 bill that led to mass incarceration, so they don't want to talk about that. You know what his contribution was? He probably made more illegal money than anyone in the Senate, because that's what he devoted his time to.
Yeah.
Now we go to Russia. Russia, Collusion with Russia. Remember that? Collusion with Russia for Donald Trump turns out to be zero. Not true. My goodness, the Democrats colluded with Russia. How? The wife of the mayor of Moscow, or I should say the widow of the mayor of Moscow, makes a $3.5 million payment to the same Hunter Biden who can't do anything. Why'd she pay it to him? She is one of the richest women in Russia. She's one of the most dangerous women in Russia. She helped to have her husband deposed to please Putin. She's this tight with Putin. Everybody's complaining that Trump is too friendly with Putin. He's not. He's been tougher on Russia than any American president. And these phony hypocrites are doing this, and they're making money.
Now, if Trump was in cahoots with the Russians, remember during the Syria incident, we killed 400 Russians because they were stationed in Syria. Yeah, real friendly.
With Putin. They're not just friends with him, they're making money with him. And our phony press doesn't cover it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to save this country. You've got to save this country from this kind of communist, Nazi, fascist censorship. This is not published. 3.5 million. We have the documents into Hunter Biden's stupid company. And we don't know why. And Joe was asked about this at the debate, and he did what he always does. He lied. And the press did what they always do. They didn't bother to cover it, even though our country is being sold out.
Joe Biden lied? Oh my God. Surprise.
To Russia. Now, when you go deeper into the hard drive, what you find is there are two other payments from her. Gets close to $4 million altogether from this shadowy, very dangerous woman, part of Russian organized crime. And think about Daddy worrying about the drug addict. Now he's got working with a second organized crime big shot, who probably has a couple of murders under their belt. This is how you rehab a drug addict, Dad? God, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, there goes Dad of the Year award.
This would be a convenient time to take a short break. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell.
Couldn't believe it either.
They forged your name on your deed stating you sold. They mobilized to shut it down. Go online to hometalk.com. Thank you for returning. Now we go to the big place. Now we go to China. We got two deals in China. One occurs when he's vice president. Shocking that we don't know about this. Intolerable, and it requires an investigation of Obama and the Obama administration. Obama makes him point man for China. Remember? Point man? America gets screwed. He fails. And the Biden family gets millions. And you never find out about it because Obama and the suck-up press keep it from you. Because, in the words of Joe Biden, you don't deserve to know. You're just a bunch of stupid citizens. You're not an elitist like Obama or like Hillary Clinton or like Joe Biden. In China, Joe Biden takes Air Force Two, and on your money, on your dime, he flies his son to Beijing. He's going there to save America, to get the Chinese out of the islands that they dispute with Japan, and to get them to lower their tariffs. Hunter's going there, this is in between drug rehabs. He's going there, we don't know why, and I'm never told. Except the documents tell the story, and the hard drive tells the story now. Joe goes there, he fails. Of course he fails. Always fails. Or did he fail on purpose this time? He fails to get them out of the islands, they put more military in the islands. He fails to get tariffs reduced, they increase tariffs. 8 days later, though, the family succeeds in the only thing they're really interested in, money. A $1 billion commitment to a private equity fund that the SEC should have put out of business the day it started. A private equity fund that was a joke, it was idiotic, it stunk. Here were the partners. Hunter Biden, son of the vice president. Chris Hines, stepson of the Secretary of State. China got 2 for 1. $1 billion's still a lot, though. But they also got, you will not believe this, they also got the nephew of Whitey Bulger, one of the biggest organized criminals in the U.S. So now we have him dealing with, we got the drug addict dealing with, based on his father's advice, who doesn't really give a damn about him, except as a bag man, we got him dealing with the Chinese communist and the nephew of an American organized criminal. This is great surroundings for a guy who's got an addictive personality and has a significant problem with drugs. And if you look at his pictures, my God, it looks like the guy's on crack every other day. So China puts in $1 billion.
And he probably was.
A couple months later, China puts in another $500 million. Joe loses all negotiations with China. There's an article written that China much prefers to deal with Joe Biden and John Kerry than Hillary Clinton because they're much easier on. But the New York Times doesn't write that their sons are in a private equity fund that got $1.5 billion commitment from China. Do you think you should have known that? You think it's a crime to cover that up? You think Obama knew? I don't know. You think it's worthy of investigation? Nah. Joe can do that. He can have his son make $1.5 billion and screw the United States. Fine. That's not bribery. Of course it's bribery. That's not fraud. Of course it's fraud. For you and me, it would be. For you and me, we get arrested the moment they heard about it. And should be. For Joe Biden,
damn right.
It's even written in a book, and the press, Joe would never do anything wrong. Finally, the last one. The one that is probably the most brazen, and the one that's really a true espionage operation on the part of the Chinese government. They got Joe pretty good. They got him lined up pretty good. They're into the family for about 30 or 40 million at this point, China. But he might be president. China's intelligence operation, of course, is superb. And they got this guy, but no reason not to really jam him really hard and to improve on all the terrible photographs they have in their library on his son and other members of his family doing things that would be shocking to the conscience and illegal.
Disgusting is more the
So
word.
they utilize one of their major intelligence operatives, one of the highest members of the Communist Party, and a man considered to be one of the richest men in China, according to a tape-recorded conversation where you can hear Hunter Biden's voice proudly saying he's doing business with the richest man in China, Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping's number 2 guy is a gentleman named Patrick Ho. You can hear Hunter Biden describe on tape Patrick Ho as a Chinese spy master and my partner. We get the tape at the time that the business has fallen apart. But here's what the business was and is. The business is a partnership. American partners, Chinese communist partners. The American partners are Joe Biden, James Biden, Hunter Biden, Sarah Biden, that's the sister-in-law, Gilliers, and the
That one I have not heard about, the sister-in-law.
Gentleman who has become a whistleblower, Mr. Borodinsky. Okay, what's the deal, as Joe would say? The deal is $10 million a year to the Americans paid by Xi Jinping and his company, CEFC, which is a Chinese energy company and also considered to be a front for Chinese intelligence. And he specializes in putting people in sham businesses where he can compromise them. Ha! He succeeded really good here. He didn't just compromise them, he destroyed them, particularly since Hunter was taping everything and not knowing that he was keeping it on his hard drive. So you can listen to the crime if you want to listen to Hunter Biden. Nobody in our media wants to do that.
No.
They don't want you to know it. They'd rather have a major criminal in the White House than Donald Trump. because they are sick. They suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. They're consumed by hate. And you can see it in someone like Pelosi. I mean, hate just takes over. It takes over your mind, your conscience, takes over your rationality.
So?
It's probably the most insidious vice you can have. And they have it, boy, and the press has it big time. So we have the deal. Papers are all there. Go to my podcast, you can see it. Go to my website, you can see it. $10 million a year for 3 years to the American partners. However, there is a hidden piece of paper. Hidden, which you have to go dig for in the hard drive, which we did. The hidden piece of paper shows the true division of the equity. And the true division of the equity, right at the bottom, says 10% 2H for the big guy. Who's the big guy? Want to guess? The American press doesn't want to guess. American press doesn't want to cover it. This would be an interesting little game. Who's the big guy? I'm going to tell you who the big guy is. You just spend a little more time with the hard drive, and you find 2 references by Hunter to his father as the big guy. The big guy, his father, Joe Biden, trying to become president of the United States, as a partner with 3 Chinese communists, 1 an intelligence agent, the second a major spy, and the third an intelligence agent. And he's going to get 10% of the equity. And according to a text, which is a bombshell of bombshells also kept away from you, which you will see right now, very simply, for 30 years, this racketeering arrangement I'm describing to you, I didn't tell you about the pennies they made in the early years. This would be our 4th count, but there would be about 20 counts. In that, there's a very simple statement by him. Read it, you see it. For 30 years, which is about when all the criminality with lobbying started and his having a no-show job at the MBNA Bank, all things that were written about and suspected, but buried by a crooked press that doesn't cover Democrats the way they cover Republicans. That has to stop if we're going to have an America of equal justice. And only you can stop it. You can stop it by voting these Democrats out of office. So they're forced to clean themselves up and come back with a decent party like they used to have. Let's pause for a moment and we'll be right back. Election day is next Tuesday, and you know how important it is for you to vote a lifetime. A vote for president, your polling location. Thank you very much for returning. This text would convict them in any court of law anywhere. It says that for 30 years, Hunter's been collecting the money for the family. He's paying for the expenses of the family. And then he's got to give half to Pop. And that's exactly the same arrangement with James, the other bag man, and with Sarah, the other bag man, and a couple of others that way back were involved with it. So we've got a 5-count RICO indictment. Ukraine, 14 million. Iraq, 1/3 of 1.5 billion, whatever the profit on that was. Russia, 4 billion, but a 200 to 600 million dollar money laundering scheme that was put together. China first, 1.5 billion that went into the phony Whitey Bulger, Whitey Bulger private equity fund. That's where they own Joe. They own Hunter. And then they really wanted to own him, and we end up with Hudson West with the CEFC. That's the Chinese front company with 10 million a year, 1 million up front in a private agreement with Hunter Biden. Show you that one. So this one is the piece de resistance, because this one, all the years, you didn't get Joe's name in. We do have the admission from his son as to how it worked, but the bagmen are supposed to protect the crooked politician. That's why he had his son there. That's why he didn't give a damn if his son's drug addiction got worse. He wasn't going to use some bum in Washington to do it that could rat on him. He was using his son. But man, they made a mistake here.
Big
Out
one.
agreed. They wanted to make sure that Joe got his 10%. So they were really cute, very smart. 10% to H for the big guy. What they forgot is, right in the hard drive, there were other references to the big guy, and they referred to Joe Biden. And they didn't think that Mr. Bobulinski would turn on them. And he publicly testified, you heard him, and he's given an affidavit to the FBI that Joe Biden was the big guy, that Joe Biden did get 10%, that Joe Biden was pretty much running the show, and that Joe Biden has been lying for 30 years when he says, I didn't know about the financial arrangements of my son. How many times did you hear him say in his somewhat now affected speech from, I believe, mental deterioration, how many times have you heard him say, I didn't know anything about my son's financial or foreign dealings? Well, Mr. Bobulinski, who's a Navy veteran who was discharged honorably, unlike Hunter, says that's not true. He says you're a liar, Joe. Well, the 10% proves that also, Joe, that you're a liar. And common sense proves it. You flew your son to China. You failed. You got kicked around all over China. Maybe on purpose, Joe, because you knew what was coming. 8 days later, your son, who couldn't hold a job, who can't stay away from crack, where we have 1,000 pictures of him on crack, your son got $1 billion from China, and he didn't tell you. You got to come up with better lies, Joe. And you got to stay away from the White House. You really are completely unfit to be president of the United States. In fact, it's an insult to this country that a man like you is running with the life that you've led of crime and of how often you sold out the United States. So, the election's coming up. If you haven't voted, vote and take into consideration, this is a lot bigger than Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
This is about whether we're going to have censorship, about whether China owns us, and whether we remain the free and great country that we are today. Trump assures that. Biden assures just the opposite. Thank you very much.
And as I said, Schumer and Pelosi have connections to this whole mess. And who knows that we don't even know yet. This is a lot of information. There are 3 hard drives. 3. With all this kind of information. Now, I'm going to probably say he gets his ass arrested after the election. That will be next week or shortly after. I'm going to predict that with all the criminal evidence that Rudy has. That's just a portion. That ain't scratching the surface of what I've heard. And I'm kind of worried about presenting it more on open social media right now until this 230 business is dealt with. If you haven't heard, it deals with more money laundering, pedophilia, disgusting as shit, and he should be arrested just for that. I mean, there's plenty of evidence for it. But it's funny how we haven't seen Hunter for a while. Now, there is other evidence probably we have not heard of yet. God only knows what the hell we have left to learn. Rudy knows. Steve Bannon knows. Watch Pandemic. And I'm going to start playing a little bit of that more in little bits and snippets. So, like Jack, don't get a little bit nervous. But I did find what I was looking for. Let me fire that up for you. It's on Twitter. And I'm surprised they have not took this down yet, which I am glad they did not. careful there. Let's see, we'll take Rudy off. Bring her on.
News Sinclair exclusive tonight. A Justice Department official has confirmed to Sinclair that the FBI opened up a criminal investigation into Hunter Biden and his associates back in 2019, focused on allegations of money laundering, and that the probe remains active. Investigative reporter James Rosen has also spoken with a censor witness and has more on these allegations.
A Justice Department official confirmed to Sinclair that back in 2019, the FBI opened up a criminal investigation into Hunter Biden and his associates that is focused on allegations of money laundering and remains open and active today. Tony Bobulinski, thank you for joining us from Los Angeles. Separately, Tony Bobulinski, the former business partner of Hunter Biden, who has cited emails, documents, and other evidence to allege that former Vice President Biden was more deeply involved in his son's business dealings in China than either man has acknowledged, told Sinclair he was interviewed by the FBI in Washington on October 23rd with counsel present for about 5 hours, with up to 6 agents in the room at one time. He said the agents carefully examined the digital evidence captured on the 3 cell phones Bobulinski made available and told him he will be brought back for additional questioning.
They do list me as a material witness within the entire FBI on their computer systems, and it was a very cooperative, deep dive into all the facts across that time period.
In connection with what were you listed as a material witness?
In connection with the discussion of the Biden family, CFC, and other operations around the world involving other countries.
CEFC is the Chinese energy giant, effectively an arm of the government and the Communist Party, with which Hunter Biden pursued a $10 million deal, according to Bobulinski's first-hand account and a wealth of evidence now in the public domain. It was from CEFC, according to a Senate report, that Hunter Biden's law firm, through a company he helped set up, received approximately $5 million in the summer of 2017.
Joe, what's that all about? This president paid 50 times the tax in China.
It was prior to the final presidential debate in Nashville on October 22nd that Bobulinski, a former Naval Nuclear Command officer with a Q-level security clearance, now a wealthy corporate investor, first went public with his charges about the Biden family, including his account of 2 face-to-face meetings with the former vice president. The FBI interviewed Bobulinski the very next day. Did you get the sense that the FBI had already been working on these related issues and matters prior to you making that public statement in Nashville?
My impression is everyone in that room was very aware of the sensitivity of the parties involved here and potential multiple impacts to this country.
Vice President Biden has denied having any knowledge of his son's overseas business dealings, but the authenticity of the digital evidence that Bobulinski has cited has not been disputed by the Biden campaign. The campaign's director of rapid response did not respond to our requests for comment. In Washington, James Rosen.
Joining me now, former mayor of New York City, also the lawyer for President Donald Trump, and a big fan of the John Furtick Show, but how many times? Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, man, it's great to have you back, sir.
It's great to be back. I'm glad that you and Bannon are doing that show on election night. That's good luck.
It is good luck, and we were, well, you know what?
I'm a little superstitious about elections and baseball. That's it.
I agree with that. In fact, when Bannon's the same thing, and he said because we did the same thing in 2016, and he said, well, your wife was there, Ann was there. You got to get her to come up. Everything has got to be the exact same. So I'm like, Ann, you got to come to Washington and help do a show with Steve Bannon. So I mean, Steve Bannon's worse than you are for superstition. But we got a lot to talk about, Mr. Mayor. But I want to first get to all of the great news we're getting right now in state after state. Trump is surging. How do you feel, sir, about the next 5 days?
Well, I feel very good about it. You know, I've been through many elections, so I never take anything for granted. I feel better than I did in 2016. I feel the enthusiasm is greater. I think the support the base support is much more solid. I mean, the people who support him, you know, are going to walk through walls for him. And I think we've been gaining a lot in the last 10 days. Whether it's the hard drive that, despite the fact that they're censoring it, people are learning about it. And maybe the fact that they're censoring it is making it even worse. I mean, from their point of view. But the news today should reelect any incumbent president. The economy just grew by a record rate. we were predicting depression about 5 months ago. We're now only for the whole pandemic now. We're down only 3.5%. We've grown to 33%. In other words, 1/3 of our economy has just zoomed right up. We're just a few points away from where we were last year. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Nobody could do this. And we got 4 or 5 states that are in virtual progressive Democrat shutdown.
Right.
My state, New York.
Right.
I mean, the poor restaurants are still operating only 20%.
Right.
No. The disease is a different disease now. People don't die of it in anywhere near the rates they did 5 months ago. The rates are kind of normal for any disease. So when you hear all these cases, it's a ridiculous thing to react to. It'd be as if I said, "Oh, a lot of flu this week."
Right.
Very few people now, thank God, are going to die from this. We now have therapeutics. We know the age group it affects and the age group it doesn't affect. People get cured now in the number of days that President Trump got. I have 4 friends. They're over the age of 70. They both got it, and they were better in 4 days. And one of them has only 1 lung. It's a different disease. And the economy should re-elect him hands down. Now, if you need any other possibility, is that Joe Biden would be a disaster. He's a crook. He's always been a dummy. And now he has dementia. What else do you want?
It's like the toxic
trifecta. I mean, it's very likely, right, even before the end, he'll get up and say, I mean, the other day he was running against George. I'd like to know who George, I want to know is it George Bush, 41, 43, George Washington, or possibly George III? What's going on in that? What's going on there?
Mr. Mayor, wasn't it? I mean, I always felt bad for him when did you see the look on Joe Biden's face, his wife, the former second lady? I mean, she was horrified. She had to go over and whisper Trump in his ear. She looked horrified.
Well, there was one where she was introducing him. I got to find it. And he's walking back and forth behind her. He can't stay still. He's like pacing back and forth. The last time I saw that is when I went to visit my mother-in-law at a nursing home. I mean, it's the guy's just walking around aimlessly. What are we doing? It would be a joke, but for the fact that he's a major party candidate for president. And then I would feel worse for him if he wasn't such a horrible crook and terrible father. I mean, I had no respect. I think I would spit in his face if I saw him. Look, he has a son who has a drug problem.
Right.
30 years ago,
right.
He had a drug problem.
Right.
Oh, you take that son, you put him in a nice, easy, stressless environment.
Right.
You don't put him in the middle of 5 or 6 of the biggest criminals in the world so he can collect money for you.
Right.
I mean, I know mafia guys who treated their kids better than that.
I mean, he turned his son into a bagman, right?
His son, it was a high-level bagman, and you know what happens to a drug addict who's a bagman? He becomes a degenerate drug addict.
Right.
Because of the pressure.
Right.
The pressure of that work is ridiculous. Let's look at his last partner, who he talks about on the tape that's now been released.
Right.
Was one of the major members of Chinese organized crime.
Mm-hmm.
He acknowledges the fact that the number 2 partner is a Chinese spy. Why are you in business with a Chinese spy?
Mm-hmm.
Who the heck would be in business with a Chinese spy except somebody that China has compromised?
Of course.
And another partner in that business is Joe Biden. That's the 10% business. That's the business where they have the memo that says 2H for the big guy, 10%. So the only person who doesn't know he's the big guy is Joe because he can't remember.
So how did they funnel money to him? Because, in today's environment, Mr. Mayor, you can't just move, thousands of dollars around without the FBI being notified. How did they funnel it to him?
Yes, the FBI doesn't look at Joe Biden is immune from the FBI.
That's right.
They haven't investigated a damn thing. I've given them information for 3 years. They haven't interviewed a single witness. They haven't subpoenaed a single bank account. I mean, Joe knows he's special. Well, how do you do it? I mean, here's how you do it. It's real simple. In fact, Hunter explains it on the hard drive. Hunter collects the money for 30 years. He says this. He explains the whole program to his daughter. Somebody had if the media had the courage to cover it. He takes the money. Let's say he gets $14 million from Ukraine.
Right.
he pays the expenses of the family. He says, I paid the expenses of the whole family for 30 years. That's a quote. And then Pop requires me to kick back half to him. So he pays the expenses, and then whatever is left over, he keeps half, and he turns half over to Pop. Now, I haven't seen his bank record, so I don't know how he does it. I don't think he does it directly. I do know that the Ukrainians are investigating 4 offshore bank accounts, and they can't get cooperation from the United States Treasury Department. They've been trying to get cooperation for 4 years, and they get, from the Obama administration on, they've been stiffed by the State Department and the Treasury Department. There are people in government protecting him. And there are people in government protecting him because, as one of the Ukrainians told me, if you open it up, it's not going to just be Joe Biden. There are going to be a lot of heads that roll in Washington. That is a quote from an investigator in the Ukraine.
So
I know a few of them. I don't know the rest.
So, Mayor Giuliani, why did Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, they had this for a year, they had the hard drive for a year. Why did they sit on it?
Because there's something seriously wrong with Christopher Wray. I can't say what it is. All I can tell you is the result. There is no law enforcement officer that's worth their badge that wouldn't have immediately investigated this, including the statement that's made on that drive that he constitutes a danger to children. And then if you look at the pictures on the drive, if you didn't investigate this in a minute, you should turn your badge in. I mean, you're not worth anything.
So they would have sat on it if you hadn't
Bernie
given it to the
Carrick and
New
I
York
didn't bring
Post.
it
They
to
would have just sat
Delaware
on it.
and shoved it down there. Yeah, they'd have sat on it. Absolutely. I have no doubt about it. And I had 2 very, very skilled, very experienced New York City detectives who specialized in child pornography and child endangerment look at the whole thing and advise me. And their advice was, I can't imagine a man or a woman with a badge not immediately acting on this. If they didn't, there's something very wrong with them. So I immediately acted. You think I wanted to go to Delaware? You don't think I know that he owns Delaware? I mean, I'm going to Delaware, little Delaware. I'm going to the police that are his local police. I walked right into the lion's den with Bernie. I mean, they interviewed us in the interview room like we were 2 perps. And I handed it to them, and I showed it to them, and I can't tell you what happened. I mean, the expression on their face was, whoa. And then they kicked it to the AG, and the AG is a pawn of Biden's, and she kicked it back to the FBI. This is like playing, circle, like a circle. The FBI has it for a year. They don't do anything with it. I give it to the Delaware police. They give it back to the FBI.
Who still doesn't do anything with it.
Well, there's something about money laundering they leaked.
Right.
The FBI never tells you what happens.
Right.
You got to read the Washington Post. And then they'll tell you 2 days later by leaking.
Right.
So right now, the leak, I'm telling you a leak now, the leak says that the hard drive is accurate, hard drive is valid, and that it connects to a money laundering investigation they have going on. And I think it's a money laundering investigation involving Russia. And I think it involves that disclosure of the $3.5 million from the mayor's wife in Moscow. I think that was part of the beginning of a money laundering scheme. But that the FBI is investigating. I can't go any further with that.
But there's going to be a leak today because that's what the FBI does. They leak. I mean, we've seen it here with for forever. So the FBI is going to leak to the Washington Post that the hard drive's valid. I mean, that's like the main thing that they're going to.
No, they have.
Yeah.
There's already been a leak from FBI sources that the hard drive has proven to be accurate, and it links to a money laundering investigation, but they can't say anything beyond that. And they'll hold that money laundering investigation until well after the election is over, because at the upper echelons of the FBI, they are rooting desperately for Joe Biden, because I think they know what's going to happen when Donald Trump gets reelected.
That's so kind of the same thing with Hillary, right? They did all this stuff, expected Hillary to win, and then it would all be forgotten. It would all be rolled under the carpet.
Yeah, and he was too easy on him, frankly.
Yeah.
The president was. And then he picked the wrong guy in Ray.
Right.
Ray is an institution protector,
right?
Not a real law enforcement guy.
Right. John Frederick's Radio Network with former mayor of New York City, Mayor Giuliani. I've voted for him a whole bunch of times. Mayor, it's always good to have you. I want to get
Thank you.
I got to get to Tony Bobulinski here. What did? I mean, this has not been covered. I mean, the guy does a press conference, then he goes on Tucker Carlson, Fox News, and the fake news refuses to cover this guy, and he's got direct evidence. What's the deal with that?
The deal is that we have a much more corrupt media than you or I predicted. I mean, we knew the media was pretty bad, right? And since I've been representing Donald Trump, I mean, I've been in politics 35 years, and I've had some pretty rough coverage. I've never seen anything like. I worked for Ronald Reagan. I saw bad coverage of him. But this is a conspiracy. I mean, I know people think you're crazy when you say conspiracy. This is a conspiracy involving big tech, big media, and some very, very big businesses to take over our country and tell us how we're going to live, what we should think, what we can say, for their benefit so they can profit. It's outrageous. It's the most anti-American thing that's happened. It makes McCarthyism look mild.
Unbelievable. Mr. Mayor, I want to get to another thing. Both of us are from New York. Like, we grew up when the New York Times was the paper of record, right? It was simply the paper of record. If it was in there, you believed it. There was a Post, there was a Daily News. My father, his whole life, worked for the Herald Tribune as a pressman before it went under, then the World Journal. He used to bring 8 newspapers home a day. But it was always the Times. The Times put the story out. Remember, anonymous, right? Senior Trump official, all the things going on, unfit for office. And a lot of people thought, is it Vice President Pence? Is it Pence's chief of staff? Is it Dan Coates of DNI? Is it General McMaster? Is it General Kelly? It turns out to be a lower level staffer, Miles Taylor, a little snot-nosed RNC staffer that nobody ever heard of, a never Trumper, and they put it on the front page as if it was some kind of a senior official. This is in the New York Times.
Actually, I don't even think he was high enough to get coffee for me.
I mean,
and the guy was a little jackass.
Exactly.
I mean, and the reality is, the Times lied. They said he was a senior administration official, but there's no consequences for the Times lying. I mean, that's why they get away with it. I mean, the Times. When I was representing the president in the impeachment thing, I mean, one of those papers, the Times or the Post, would lie every day.
Mm-hmm.
How about Donald Trump Jr. is going to be indicted?
Mm-hmm.
I must have read that 20 times in those papers.
Right.
He was never even close to being indicted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that was a leak from the special prosecutor's office. I think they just made it up to torture him.
Well,
I really think they've become totally dishonest.
So what happens? I mean, when you were mayor, they were, everybody knew they were liberal, but they were not like making stuff up. I mean, to me, putting that on the front page and saying this was a senior Trump official, I remember speculating on this radio show. We had 5 or 6 people in mind. That
probably on. I gave you some of my speculations. I mean, I didn't think it was any top. I always thought they overstated it. I thought it was more like a second level guy, a second level, either Republican never Trumper or a government, a permanent government guy. But I figured he was at the higher bureaucratic level. I didn't think it was a guy that I can't even remember. Right?
I mean, it's a lower level staffer, lower level. I mean,
if you look at him, he had Trump derangement syndrome, and you can't trust any. It's like the whistleblower.
Mm-hmm.
The whistleblower was a total joke.
Mm-hmm.
The whistleblower has been involved for 5 years in trying to take Trump out of office.
Mm-hmm.
He's gotten caught in more ridiculous scams that have backfired.
Mm-hmm.
When I found out who the whistleblower was, I said, no wonder lying Schiff doesn't want to put him out. The guy was involved back in 2016 in a ridiculous plot with the Ukrainians to get them to dig up dirt on Trump. This was before Trump was president. Now, why he's sitting there is our fault. We should have found him and kicked him out. But, I mean, the idea is that Trump has got people who have a sick hatred of him in the government. And the hatred, I mean, psychologically, the hatred has now invaded these people to such an extent, it's taken over their rationality, their conscience, and they really believe they can do anything they want to get rid of this awful man. I mean, I guess they don't kill, but that's about the only thing they don't do.
Are we going to
They lie, they perjure themselves, they pay money to people.
Yeah. In his second term, are we going to clean house?
Yeah, Don. Whoa, if I have anything to say about it, I asked the president, just give me a special appointment for 3 months and give me Grinnell to help me.
90 days.
Over within 3 months.
90 days with 90 days special appointment with Richard Grinnell. That's all you need, right?
Yeah, and protection by my own people that I can trust.
Exactly, right. Which are far and few between.
My former police officers and FBI agents. Look, I used to represent the former FBI agents. I mean, the FBI is a wonderful organization. We could turn that place around in 2 days.
Right.
I mean, you got to cut off the head. That's all.
I'm going to wrap around where we were. How does this Biden scandal, Tony Bobulinski hard drive? Where, in your opinion, Mr. Mayor, does this go?
This is not what it should be. It should be a knockout punch, but it's a very, very strong body blow to a guy who's falling apart anyway.
Mm.
I mean, he's giving people visual evidence every day that he shouldn't be president.
Retired bishop.
The president is giving them visual evidence that he has some kind of superhuman energy and unbelievable dedication to the good of the American people. I mean, I think in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, and you always say this, but I think the real Donald Trump is getting through. I think the thing that motivates him is getting through. And even if you don't like sometimes if he overreacts or whatever, he does it for the right reason. He loves this country. He wants to do as perfect a job as he can do. And when he sees this, I'm sorry, he loses his temper. I would have to be restrained not to spit in Joe Biden's face. The man sold out my country for 30 years, and then he ruined his son's life. As a father, I just don't. It's not I don't like him. I don't respect him. I gotta run.
Mayor Giuliani, thank you for being with us.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
John
you.
Fredericks Radio Network.
I'm going to play a little bit of a commercial break, and I got a couple more things for you.
This just in. The global officials that can help all, also known as Got You, have now banned all boogieing and boogie-related movements worldwide. Public safety is the main concern, they say, and people are reminded that boogieing is contagious. Anyone caught boogieing will be dealt with in the harshest terms, police have reported. More at 11.
Sometimes this world can get you down. There's just one thing you can do. You gotta get back up and shake it all around. No one's gonna tell me how I'm gonna boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight. No one's gonna tell me how I'm gonna boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight. No one's gonna tell me how to boogie. Come on, everybody boogie bumper tonight.
Most weeknights, join my good self UK Neil over at DLive for the Great Awakening show. That's over on DLive at dlive.tv/UK Neil. Get yourself out of that matrix and get over to the Great Awakening.
Join me, Rusty the Iceman, Sunday night, 7:30 Standard Eastern Time on Twitch, Twitter, Periscope, and Facebook.
Welcome back. I got another clip from Rudy.
Giuliani is the former mayor of New York City, now personal attorney for President Trump. He joins us live this morning. Rudy, it's been nearly 2 weeks since the Hunter Biden allegations came out in the New York Post. Once again, Newsmax has not independently verified any of the claims in the Post or any that you yourself have made. But as you know, we are 5 days from Election Day. Is there anything new expected to come out before November 3rd?
Well, first of all, there's the job of getting the story to the American people, which maybe only half have gotten because a very unprecedented and un-American censorship has been imposed by people who think they're better than us and who support, Joe Biden, by Democrats, by the national news media, by big tech, big publishers. I mean, you're one of the outlets that acts as an American news organization.
Right.
The others act more like they're communists.
Jeez.
I mean, they don't publish the news, and the hard drive has now been validated at least 20 times, including by the FBI, and nor have the Bidens denied any of the damning emails and texts, including the one about how Joe gets half the money, and nobody pays attention to that.
So
there's a text that says that Hunter Biden gives half the money and has for the last 30 years to Pop. That's a pretty good explanation of what happens to the bribery money. Now, I think there are going to be additional revelations. I mean, just yesterday, I found 4 hours of audio tape of Hunter Biden, which we didn't know we had. It actually, I think he thought he had erased it, but he had sent it to the cloud. So that was very, very damaging. It was Hunter in his own language, which kind of confirms the hard drive. It's Hunter Biden talking. And he explains that he's in partnership with a Chinese spy. You may have heard it, and it's been played. And I certainly will give it to you if you want it. It says that he and his father are in a business with a Chinese spy. Now, what is the former vice president, the man who wants to be president, doing in a business in which he's getting $10 million a year with a Chinese spy and 2 other Chinese communists?
Yeah, I want to
Sounds like
jump
he's working for the other side.
I want to jump to another development in this story where we heard from the Biden's former business partner speaking out now, appearing to corroborate the allegations that you've uncovered from the laptop. Again, we haven't independently verified these allegations, but the name Tony Bobulinski had a very simple answer for how the Bidens would react to these allegations. Here's what he said.
I remember looking at Jim Biden and saying, how are you guys getting away with this? Like, aren't you concerned? And he looked at me and he laughed a little bit and said, plausible deniability.
Rudy, what'd you make of that response from Bobulinski and also the interview that he provided when he came forward?
Well, first of all, plausible deniability means lying. That's what it means. It means you don't tell the truth. You hide it. You hide the truth, which is what they've been doing for 30 years. And they get away with it because they have a press that sucks up to them. I mean, look, you can't get the Washington Post, the New York Times, NBC, ABC, CBS. You just keep going on and on. They haven't even covered this story, which is the best evidence that they're in bed for them. They won't even cover it and criticize it. You know why they won't cover it and criticize it? Because it's so overwhelmingly true.
That it is.
You can come and validate it anytime you want. I can validate it for you in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I can show you the things. I can show you the things there that nobody would know except for Hunter Biden.
Well, we've
took a look at the 29,000 photographs. You would figure this is nobody else but Joe Biden. Except you better be ready to vomit if you want to look at the 29,000 photographs because they're disgusting and they include underage girls.
Well, we've seen Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey obviously limit the spread of this article, the New York Post article, and he was called before Congress to testify yesterday about this censorship. Here's what he said.
Do you have any information whatsoever they're not authentic or that they are Russian disinformation? Mr. Dorsey.
We don't.
You have no. So why would you censor it? Why did you prevent that from being disseminated on your platform that is supposed to be for the free expression of ideas, and particularly true ideas?
We believed it fell afoul of our hacking materials policy. We judged in the.
Well, what evidence did you have that it was hacked? They weren't hacked.
We judged in a moment that it looked like it was hacked materials.
You were wrong.
Surfacing, and we updated our policy and our enforcement within 24 hours.
So even earlier during that hearing, he said that he didn't have evidence that it was in fact Russian disinformation. And yet, as you know, the New York Post is still locked out of their Twitter account.
Sounds to me like he should be indicted for perjury, doesn't it? I mean, he said they had straightened it out. That's a straight lie. I mean, that's a complete lie. I mean, he's actually had a day to do it afterwards. I mean, I think I'd do an immediate indictment for perjury and let the big shot be subjected to the same punishments ordinary Americans are subjected to. I believe because he thinks he's a genius left-wing billionaire.
That's how come I got back on the Gab.
He can do anything. He runs this country. Nobody gets to suppress speech like that. Who, as Senator Cruz said, who the hell do you think he is? He thinks he's God because he's a computer genius.
Yeah, Cruz also said, who elected you? Clearly no one had elected Jack Dorsey to the role that he plays. And yet, again, with 5 days until the election, it's so key and crucial what is and isn't allowed to be shared on social media.
Well, why
I want to jump
indicted
ahead.
for perjury, like an ordinary American would be. We shouldn't treat these people like they
Exactly.
have special rules for them. That's why they get like Biden. Biden did this for 30 years because they let him get away with it. He's been stealing money for 30 years.
Okay.
It's obvious.
Yeah, I want to jump ahead just so we get through all this here, because you had a heated exchange on Fox News this week. I want to play.
That you were acting like Christopher
Kinda
Steele.
true, Christy.
That you were abstracting information, and because
You got to be kidding me! I was acting like Christopher Steele.
that's what it sounds like when you look at the people.
You better apologize for that. I mean, I've been a United States Attorney, Associate Attorney General, Mayor of New York
Tell her,
City,
Rudy.
and a member of the bar for 50 years. I've never been accused of anything, and you're accusing me of being Christopher Steele?
I'm accusing you of
That's
acting in a
outrageous that you would do
capacity
that based on
similar
nothing.
to Christopher Steele, and that
Similar
you
to
were
a
going.
crook. You have no basis for that. I came on your show in good faith to give you evidence that is being withheld from the American people, and I get defamed. That's outrageous.
All right, are you still working on behalf of the president?
I think our interview is now over.
Good for Rudy.
Wow, some
I didn't
fireworks
see
there. Makes you wonder, why you keep going back on Fox News. I know you said in the clip you're trying to get this story out there, but what'd you make of that moment, that interaction?
That really surprises me from Kennedy. Kennedy is a Trump supporter, as far as I'm aware of. That is interesting behavior. Now, maybe she got instructions to do that.
What I made of it is that she's a very, very poor journalist. She hadn't done her homework. Had a problem once with her at the beginning of her career. And I actually told her boss not to fire her. When she was with MTV and doing lewd gestures in back of me. And my chief of staff got a call from her boss saying, does the mayor want us to fire her? And Tony Carbonetti, he'd be happy to corroborate this, said, no, the mayor thinks she's a young lady, give her a chance, just tell her to straighten out. I don't know what's wrong with her. I mean, to compare me to a criminal, I mean, I don't mind tough questions, but I don't take any crap either. I never have, even when I was mayor. You accuse me of being a criminal, you're going to have a hard time.
Hey, Rudy, do you think...
I mean, you're going to have a real hard time because I never have been. I put more criminals in jail and more significant ones than probably any living American. So you want to attack my reputation, you're not going to have an interview with me.
Do you think conservatives are
going
to shift to Newsmax?
Happy to explain it to you.
Well, Christy, as you've seen in that clip, when she turned the other butt cheek, she got kicked. She better turn it back.
But I'm not Christopher Steele.
Yeah.
I don't make things up. I didn't get paid $1 million by Hillary Clinton or anybody else. So you want to make that suggestion, I'm going to take your head off. Sorry.
Do you think more people will be changing channels to Newsmax?
Well, she's one. I love Fox. I mean, Fox is one of our only outlets. But I mean, what she did is disgraceful. Again, if she'd apologize, I'd accept her apology. I don't hold grudges, and maybe she can learn something from it. But the reality is, you do not accuse someone of being a crook unless you have evidence of it. It's like what Dorsey did. Dorsey, actually, they said it was Russian material. Somebody at Twitter lied. Now he says there was no evidence it was Russian material, and they fall back on it was hacked. Well, it wasn't hacked. So, but the post is still being banned. So the man's a liar. You know what would be really good for American justice? American people would applaud if today this man were indicted for perjury and arrested.
Again,
Maybe
hearing.
truth
So you're
in front
under
of him.
oath. You're under oath in those situations, and we did
I'm
hear from.
sorry, he's not,
we heard
he's
from
not
those tech
special
giants
because he's
yesterday.
A big billionaire with a big beard. Sorry.
All right,
You
Rudy
don't get to
Giuliani.
lie.
Yeah, thank you joining us live this morning, Rudy. Thanks so much.
They should all be indicted for perjury. Damn right. This is the second time they've lied about bullshit. Okay, we will. And I think a lot of people are, as people are jumping ship to Twitter and Parlay, or however you wish to pronounce the name. It's getting kind of old. And if they want any legitimacy, they will treat social media as what it was intended and not an editing room. When you talk about the Ukraine situation, here is more damning evidence of what happened.
I will tell you, because as Secretary of State, I was deeply involved in this. All of us in the administration were trying to get rid of that prosecutor. From Obama to the Secretary of State to the Vice President, all of us were working on that. The ambassador, and we knew if Ukraine was going to survive and win the revolution in the end, the Maidan, they had to get rid of that prosecutor, and they did.
We're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him.
He just threw them under the bus.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Because as Secretary of State, I was deeply involved in this. All of us in the administration were trying to get rid of that prosecutor. From Obama to the Secretary of State to the Vice President, all of us were working on that. The ambassador, and we knew if Ukraine was going to survive and win the revolution in the end, the Maidan, they had to get rid of that prosecutor. And
there you have it. Full confession. Full freaking confession. And not only from him, but we've had it from Clapper, who basically says they took orders from the top when it came to the Russian hoax and coup. It is a coup, no matter how you want to deal with it. I'm going to get to these others a different time, but there is really one interesting piece I came across, and I came across it by a total accident this morning, which I thought maybe you would enjoy. Okay, come on.
Hong Kong, and despite all his warnings, the Holy See has officially renewed its agreement with China, allowing the communist government a say in the appointment of Catholic bishops. In the past year, China has continued to crack down on religious groups and church.
They also have a lot of ties to China, excuse me, not China, but China and Burisma and Kazakhstan.
In the mainland and in Hong Kong. Why did the Vatican extend what remains a secret deal with China? And what are the ramifications for the faithful who must live under this communist regime? Here with an update is Joseph Cardinal Zen. Your Eminence, thank you for being here. The Vatican renewed that agreement with China on October 22nd. You've called this renewal sickening. Why?
No, I said that the speech by Cardinal Parolin is full of lies. That was sickening. But I am not very much interested in this renewal of the agreement because I don't even know what is in that agreement. So what can I say? So the most incomprehensible thing is that it should remain secret. But anyway, all the facts which follow the signing of the agreement all speak against the agreement because we see no improvement, but only the hardening of the position of the government, and the persecution is much more harsh than before. So I don't think we have to expect any improvement from this renewal of the agreement.
You mentioned Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State. He explained in Milan that the Vatican extended their agreement, giving Chinese authority a significant role in choosing the country's bishops because, and we quote, the pastoral goal of the agreement was to free up local churches to dedicate themselves to the mission of proclaiming the gospel. And for the dialogue to bear more consistent fruit, it is necessary to continue it. Is this agreement, Cardinal Zen, helping the proclamation of the gospel or facilitating dialogue?
I am 100% sure that His Eminence doesn't believe what he was saying. He cannot believe what he's saying.
Why?
Because you can be optimistic, but you need a foundation.
Now, I think it's been a month since the Chinese has sent a delegate, if you will, to the Vatican. And they got a lot of people wondering.
For your optimism. Now, from all the things which happened after the signing of the agreement, we see nothing, no improvement at all. So I would like to tell him, just give us few facts, just a few facts, but nothing. So how can you say that it's helping? It's helping the wrong church. The church they are helping is the schismatic church. And so you just help that church to grow, and you make the right church, the underground church, the faithful church to die. That's the fact.
Yeah. To date, the details, as you mentioned, the details of this agreement regarding the appointment of bishops have been kept secret. And the situation in China for Catholics and the people of faith there has continued to decline. What are you hearing from people in China, and what was the reaction to the re-signing of this deal?
You see, the agreement is about the appointment of bishops. And they say the things went very smooth, but nothing happened in the force of that agreement, because no appointment had made during these 2 years. So it's something ridiculous. They made such a solemn agreement and they did not use it. No appointment at all during 2 years. We have 2 episcopal ordinations, okay, but the appointment was made many years ago. Without a written agreement, there was a not written compromise, mutual guessing, persons which may be acceptable, may not the best for either, but acceptable to both. But with this secrecy, the government used the agreement to demand everything from the people, and so they told the people in the underground, "Come on, now you join our church." But the people say, "No, it's not allowed." And they say, "No, the Pope already agreed," and the people don't know whether the Pope really agreed. At a certain moment, even Cardinal Parolin and Cardinal Filoni said there was no agreement on that. Then last year, the Holy See, no signature, but we know it's creature of Cardinal Parolin, agreement, a instruction from the Holy See which must be much worse than the agreement, because in that so-called pastoral orientation for the civil registration of the clergy, the Holy See was encouraging the people to join the independent church, the Patriarchal Association. That's sinful because you join a schismatic church.
You traveled to Rome last month, hoping to meet with the Pope about appointing a new bishop in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's been without a bishop for over a year. He declined to meet with you, but you did deliver a letter to him. What was your message to Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle, who's in charge of the Congregation for Evangelization, which is supposed to provide recommendations for a bishop in Hong Kong?
Yeah, actually, that agreement must regard only the church in China, on mainland. But you see, now with this state security law, we, Hong Kong, we have become just any city in China. And so, even before this state security law, they are talking about the need of a blessing from Beijing for our bishop. So that means we are no more an autonomous region.
Right.
And so we are worried. A person with a blessing from Beijing means they are sure that that person is ready to be on his knees, to obey completely to the regime. That's surely not reassuring.
Right.
And the rumor is that the Holy See may have put aside also this choice because they know that either Bishop Ha or Father Choi would not be accepted by the whole diocese. So maybe better to choose a third one, more acceptable to the totality of the diocese. But still, we are waiting for more than 1 year after that decision.
Right.
So I have some indication that the Holy See may be going back to the choice of Father Choi with the blessing of Beijing. So I was much worried. So I went to Rome. I just like to explain to the Holy Father why this choice is not good.
Given the situation in China, Your Eminence, is the underground church operating at all? What are these Catholics able to do?
The Cardinal Parolin say now all the bishops in China are legitimate. Okay, but you just put the label legitimate on those people. But those people have not changed. They're just like before. They're defiant. They are completely on the side of the government. They absolutely unworthy to be bishops. And so is that to be congratulated? And so now they invite all the underground also to join the church. Sometimes they say that, okay, we understand that the church is still going to remain a bird cage. Now you invite everybody to enter that cage. So what are they doing? They are destroying the true church and supporting the wrong church, the schismatic church.
In justifying the China agreement, Cardinal Parolin cited something Cardinal Baptista Rey, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, had said in March, mainly this: Pope Benedict XVI approved the draft agreement on the appointment of bishops in China, which it was only possible to sign in 2018. Is there any truth to this claim that Pope Benedict approved this China agreement?
First of all, just forget Cardinal Rey. Poor fellow, he was under pressure of Cardinal Parolin because he knows nothing about the church in China. He never had any part in these discussions about church in China. So the poor fellow, they chose him to be the dean of the cardinals, and so he must do something to please Cardinal Parolin. Now, the big lie. The big lie is to say that Pope Benedict agreed on this agreement which they have signed now. This is an insult. So the meek and mild Pope Benedict will not come out to deny what Cardinal Parolin is saying. So he's inserting a holy person that is very disgusting. Now, I have enough evidence to say that in the year 2010, Parolin and Cardinal Diaz, they drafted together with the counterpart an agreement which Pope Benedict must have refused to sign. That's I can say in my conscience with my knowledge of all what happened those days. And now Cardinal Ray dares even to challenge me with archive evidences. I made appeal to these archive evidences, and now I'm even afraid that they may even destroy the evidences. But I think one day the truth may come out. So it's a big lie and big insult to the holy person of our Pope Benedict.
Final question. I only have 30 seconds, Cardinal Zen. What is the solution here, in your opinion? What should the Church be doing? Is there a way out of this conundrum, where we are now with this agreement signed and renewed?
It's a nonsense, this signing and this renewing, because it has no effect at all, except it becomes an instrument in the hands of the government to do everything. You can see the things worsen day by day in China, and not only for the underground, which now is condemned to go into the catacombs, but even for the official church. Now those under 18 years of age, they can even not get into the church.
Right.
They cannot take part in any religious activity like the summer camps. So how can you say there's a progress? So simply I cannot understand. Cardinal Parolin said, "Oh, we are not aiming at the diplomatic relation." That's also a lie. I think this is the only reason you can explain all what he is doing.
It is I have to tell you, as you've pointed out, for many years, the fruit of this, and this has been building for a long time, but the fruit of this agreement, young people forbidden in churches, the gospel themselves changed to include Xi and Mao. I mean, this is mind-blowing. And the fact that the Catholic Church would bless this in any way, you have to be heartbroken. I know I am.
Yeah, I was telling the people, we can be without the church, we can be without the sacraments, but we must hold the faith. We can never sacrifice our faith. We can even sacrifice the sacraments. For example, when you are arrested, you go to prison for 20, 30 years, no sacrament, but God is in your heart. So just wait for better times, maybe soon, or maybe the primitive church had to wait 300 years, okay? So God has his time. We should be humble and just accept what happens, but don't tell lies. Don't believe lies.
I agree with you. No
Don't
lies.
believe lies.
No lies. We have to expose the lies. And we are praying for you. Our audience is praying for you and the people of China. And may your faith remain strong, Your Eminence. For love of my people, I will not keep silent by Joseph Cardinal Zen. It's available at bookstores everywhere, online at EWTN's Religious Catalog as well. Thank you, Your Eminence.
Thank you for your prayers.
Thank you.
So I hope you like that, learned a little bit of something. We're going to take a look at kind of lighten up a little bit before heading out. And oops.
mysterious and spooky. They're all together rookie, the Democrat family. Their house should be a prison where people can't go see them. They send them all to prison, the Democrat family. Beat. Cheat. Deplete. So get Pelosi shawl on, a broomstick with more claws on. We're gonna pay a call on the Democrat family.
Absolutely. Little Halloween funny thing for you. And we're going to go out with a little bit of music. I hope you all enjoy. God bless everybody out there. I will open up the chest for you right now. God bless the President of the United States, Vice President, and the military, first responders. God bless our wonderful law enforcement and the Secret Service that protect our president, and the Border Patrol, and of course, Coast Guard. Now, in Tuesday, on the election day, get out and vote for Donald J. Trump. Vote for Republican, straight Republican red. Michigan, let's get John James in the Senate and keep Donald Trump in the White House. Let's take this House back, House of Representatives. We must get Nancy Pelosi out of there. So get out of your house, suck it up, vote, whatever you do. If you're afraid of the coup, wear a mask. I don't care. You're probably going to have to anyway. If you don't like it, suck it up. Wear a mask, vote, do our job, do our duty of this country. And a little treat. And this is what I say to all the frickin' Democrats who are going to lose their ass on election day.
We went from several generations of hardworking Americans to a bunch of young fucking wussies who live at home with their moms until they're fucking 31 and can't take a punch because they're pussies. Can't make them get a job even though they're all in debt, and they'll lecture you about being politically correct. They're crying and whining on the titties of their mamas. So here's a song for all the prima donnas. Fuck your feelings. No one gives a fuck about your issues, your problems, your shitty fucking luck. This generation's fucked, a bunch of fucking weaklings. So wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. That's right, fuck your feelings.
Be a bunch of little whiny bitches.
Screw who you want, it don't affect me, but we don't need 1,000 terms for your sexuality. We're so damned emotional, been crying for a while, but the world can't run on rainbows and unicorn smiles. There's a solution, if you'd shut up and listen, put the effort in a job that you're putting into bitchin', suck it up, buttercup. Do this and you'll be fine. Grow up hair and wipe the tears from your vagina. Fuck your feelings. No one gives a fuck about your issues, your problems, your shitty fucking luck. This generation's fucked, a bunch of fucking weaklings. So wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. That's right, wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. The timeout generation that needed the switch got participation trophies and trolled the internet. Social media warriors who sit at home and pout. Now these weenies want a bunch of fucking handouts. Fuck that and fuck your feelings. No one gives a fuck about your issues, your problems, your shitty fucking luck. This generation's fucked, a bunch of fucking weaklings. So wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. That's right, wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. It's easy, just wipe your tears and fuck your fucking feelings. Fuck 'em all.
Straight to you libtards out there. Hope you enjoyed that. Have a great night, everybody. Maybe see you tomorrow. I haven't got word on if we're doing speakeasy or not. If we don't do it, I will see you Sunday night at 10 o'clock. 10:30 with Denise and Breadmaker. Have a wonderful night. And God bless America. And I appreciate all of you. As I hit the right damn button. I also like to dedicate that last song to Big Tech.